Hello again, friends. Sunday morning. We're here to make it a little bit better. Let's welcome in my co-host and friend, Mr. Joe Lethal Lever.
Oh, hello.
So I do know this. I just don't want to spoil it too much for people.
Well, yeah, no, I'm an absolute lover of the championship.
The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Robbie D. How are we doing?
Yeah, you? No, moved on to the Audi Rheinbacher Pilsner. There was, I think it was like 5 minutes late in the end, so minimum of 5 minutes additional time for this one.
Hello again, friends, and you are my friends, and welcome back to the second show on the network this morning. It is the Championship Live fan show. It is your half an hour of all the Championship news, views, and reflection upon the weekend. I am your host, Martin, and as always, I'm joined by my cohort, my colleague, my friend. It was his birthday on Friday. A belated happy birthday, Joe. Welcome in. How you doing?
Hey guys, you all right? Sorry, I'm looking at a different screen, so I can't really engage you all properly because I'm putting up a tweet. But yeah, no, I'm good, thank you. I'm 29, feeling fine. That's a lie. But yeah, no,
only 29. You're a baby. You're a baby.
Oh, please keep it coming, man. You get to this point where it's actually like you're starting to realise you're probably not as young as some people may say. So yeah, no, I'll take that. Thank you, Martin, mate. Morning. We look both very snug today.
Yeah, well, it's a drab old day, isn't it? It's cold. It's wet. It's winter. It's winter.
Yeah.
This is a lovely jumper. And the inside is all all fluffy or gorgeous. It is. We've got Nick Muller. Morning. Good morning, Nick. Ben. Good morning. And Daniel Macaulay. Signed still and scoring 96th minute winner. That is for sure. And we'll get into that, I'm sure, very soon. But yeah, so Championship weekend has come and has gone, as always. What have we missed since Thursday? Any news? Anything we've missed?
Well, you have to forgive me. I think Lionel Messi could have arrived at the Championship and I would have missed it because I was in a bit of a state Friday night.
Good man. That's what we want to hear. It's your birthday.
Yeah, do you know what's really funny? I was saying this to my girlfriend walking home whilst eating Belgian chocolates at 2:30 in the morning for my friends.
Last night?
No, this was Friday night. I was walking back and I was actually saying to her, I can't actually remember the last time I was this drunk. And I actually think it was like over a good year and a half ago, or so. I just had a few drinks in between and been quite, but the actual time I've actually got quite drunk. So yeah, no, it was good to let what's left of my hair down. And yeah, all good. Morning, Eric.
Morning, Eric. Still driving home. Joe will never, ever cease to be old. So yeah, I can't blame you. It's your birthday. You deserve it. And if you had said, Martin, I need the weekend, I'd have given you the weekend. I mean, Mr. Robbie D himself is off having a dirty weekend somewhere.
Well, it's kind of worked out the weekend's the sort of period of rest because it's my girlfriend's birthday on Tuesday. So we're going to Colchester Zoo on Tuesday for her birthday. So and she had her friends over last night for her kind of birthday thing. So I've got the weekend off to lounge around and chill out.
Good man. Well, I've got one eye on yourself and one eye on the baby monitor. The wife has gone out with the dog. He is currently asleep. I can confirm that. He is currently asleep.
I didn't even know. It was so funny because you just pulled up this piece of equipment and that is the last thing I thought you were going to say. Oh, no. Man, look at that.
So, yep, young Arthur is currently asleep. It's 20 degrees in there. Oh, that's quite nice, actually. And yeah, life is good. So hopefully he can stay asleep for the half an hour we're going to be.
Well, if Arthur suddenly wakes up, go by all means and leave me with a graphic and I shall waffle on to our lovely viewers.
Those were my exact words to the wife when she said, "Shall I try to take the dog for a walk and it stopped raining?" I said, "Yep, don't worry, me and Joe, we'll roll our sleeves up and we've got this." Daniel Barnard, where did you go, Joe, to Wednesday's ground? Have you been there?
What, to Hillsborough?
Yeah.
No, I've never been to Hillsborough, actually.
We've got to make that happen.
It's one off the list.
The Wednesday loving, I'm sure that's going to be coming up very soon.
Yeah, no, I committed, but I left them out. I was going to put them in this week for the 96th minute goal, but scored by an ex-Colchester lad. So mixed emotions. But I've got some points on Sheffield Wednesday as I always do. But yeah, no, unlucky to get a point rather than all three.
Shall we get the graphic up for this weekend's scores,
mate? Do you know what I'm going to say? Is it's 2 up, 2 down. I think Martin, you are feeling very happy this morning. So I'm going to let you. So look at that tongue. You couldn't even resist a little waggle. of it. This is
Let's
great.
Do it. Right.
Let's get Martin's 2 up, 2 down.
No. It's not. No. It's not 2 up, 2 down just yet. But we've got Norwich 0, Derby 1, Blackburn 0, Cardiff 0. Luton 2, Wycombe 0, Middlesbrough 2, Barnsley 1. Anyway, they're on the screen for you now. So, Joe, you got your 2 up, 2 down. You know my 2 up, 2 down. Anybody else stand out for you from yesterday's games that, for good or bad reasons, that you need to sort of highlight?
Yeah, actually, I was torn between a few, and I actually think that Borough's result is quite good, albeit on the outset it's 2-1 against Barnsley, who have been strugglers this season. I think for Neil Warnock's 1,500th game, gazillionth game in charge, or whatever it was, especially after him coming back after COVID and everything like that, it's been a bit unsettled up there. And I think Borough have gone quite nicely under the radar. Okay, it was first win and all that, but to get the ball rolling properly, I thought was a really decent result for them. And even though they had a late scare late on with Corley Woodrow's penalty for Barnes, I think to get 3 points is all that matters. And I mentioned that on the very first podcast, and they'll probably do it ugly at times, and they'll probably win quite narrowly. And it turns out that it seems like they're starting to do that early on, despite a little bit of turmoil off the field. So a really, really good 3 points for Borough, although they don't make it into any of our trending.
First time win for Borough?
Yeah. Yep, exactly, off the mark, and I think that's the thing, is they've been quite solid. And I think that was the Bournemouth game a few weeks ago. They were incredibly unlucky not to win that, and yeah, I think that will go quietly under the radar because it's Borough at home against Barnsley. It's one of those you'd mark down on an accumulator. But as we know, with the great equaliser at the moment with no fans, it's easier for teams like Barnsley to go to a Riverside and get something on paper. So decided not to sign Pookie after that slip. Oh yeah, he did. Pookie's failed his Claydon trials. News just in: Pookie has failed his Claydon FC.
Breaking news. Luton. I'm going to pick up on Luton's 2-0 win over Wycombe Wanderers there. So where do we start? Job done, ugly performance, but Wycombe will always be seen, I think, this year now as the potential banana skin. It wasn't a 2-0 game, Joe, but if that makes sense to you, because Luton were just more clinical than the new promoted side. Wycombe maybe should have had a penalty. It was harshly waved away. It's one of those where I've seen it given, especially these days, and I've seen it not given. Can we give a quick shout out to Gareth Ainsworth for the absolute rock star look on the sidelines? Like, he's literally rocking that.
No, I can't.
I really fear for him.
I can't give him any credit, I'm afraid, because Wycombe are in my trending down. So I'm just going to hold back for a minute because I've got them in my trending down, and unless you'd like me to just get stuck in on them straight.
No. But Luton wasn't. Does it make sense when I say it wasn't a 2-0 game? It really was a closer affair than the scoreline suggests.
I don't know. I watched 7 or 8 minutes extended highlights, and maybe it might have been on Luton's FC's channels, but Wycombe have looked just as poor as they did every single week for me. But
okay, all right.
But yeah, no, for Luton, brilliant. They're in the playoffs after 4 games. I know it's only 4 games, but good for them. Great result to build on, and that's the thing. They've to be after last season, how they started so well and then looked like they were dead certs to go down, hung on to their championship status, and they've started this year really well. So well played to them.
Over 5.5 hours now about a goal for Wycombe, but we'll get into that very soon with your downs. Before we move into the downs and ups, I want to mention Swansea and Millwall there. 2-1 for Swansea. Swansea are working wonders in the loan market again this season, with Gibbs White coming in, providing the quality they need. A really shrewd signing, it's looking like. A good win over a Millwall side that showed grit, resilience, maybe lacked a little bit of quality, but I was really impressed with Swansea yesterday, Joe. And Millwall, Jesus, you've got to take points from games like yesterday if you want to be a top 7 side. You really have.
Yeah, they narrowly missed out on my trending down Millwall, but I thought because Swansea have been quite decent this season, it might be a bit unfair to put them in there. I think Millwall's big area of the concern, though, is goalkeeper. I think they could do with getting a new one in Millwall before.
What are you talking? Are you still drunk?
No, I just thought I'd try and do it subtly and see if it went under the radar. I think Swansea. No, I agree with what you're saying. I think Swansea have done a good mixture of some of the youth players that they've had there, or at least academy products, whether they've been there their entire career, now starting to come through. And yeah, for me, Morgan Gibbs-White. The thing I'm a bit upset about with Morgan Gibbs-White is that he hasn't quite forced himself into that Wolves midfield. I would have liked to have seen that by now, but a move at Swansea, a team that will keep it on the deck, he does really complement his play. And yeah, he walks into their centre midfield each week. So yeah, no, he could be a really important player for Swansea this year. And I think, as we're going to see, even though it's 4 games, it's hard to pick out a structure at the moment because everything is so level. I think once we get to 10 or 12 games in, I think that we're actually going to see maybe 2 more playoff places up for grabs. I think perhaps the teams that looked like says, I think it's going to be actually a bit more of an open league this year. And I think Swansea and those sort of teams will be, even though Swansea were there last year, don't get me wrong, I think people weren't expecting them necessarily to be there. I think this year they could continue that consistency with some of the teams who are perhaps favoured, maybe dropping out of it. Don't diss Bart like that, Joe. You'd wish he was at Cole U. I don't know, actually. I quite like Dean Gherkin. Oh, it's gone all silent, by the way. Well, if Martin's gone quickly to see to the young Bambino.
No, I'm here. I'm just off my chair.
Oh, you just...
Dean Gherkin. Don't get yourself in a pickle, Joe.
Hey, mate. No, I'd rather have Dean Gherkin just because he loves our club. And I reckon playing Biakoski's wages along with Tommy Smith's this year would bankrupt us. So, yeah, that's the only reason why.
You're boring me, Joe. Right, on to... I love you, really. The midfield engine, I called you.
And I love my club. I'm the midfield engine. Am I the glue that keeps it together, just keep things ticking over?
You are. We need to come up with a football terminology for Robbie D. Probably the 96th minute sub. Ooh. Running line he is.
Lineker, there to tap in, but it's very important with his points.
Lineker, what? Wayne Lineker?
Mate, that if you clip that bit and done a hashtag, he's trending every single day, mate. Our championship podcast would be the most viewed one around. Wayne, mate, you call Robbie Wayne is creeping the world. If Robbie ever watches this back.
Right, 3. Where do you want to go, Joe? Up or down?
Mate, I want you to go flying in 2-footed tackle on Norwich City, and you're trending down, mate. I know I don't want to give the game away, so I just have. But I know
they know. The people at home know. They know the moment Norwich lose, they're going to be in my trending down forever and ever and ever. It's never going to be a situation where they're not in my forever and ever. Well, Eric Clapton, what was Krul trying to do with Rooney's free kick? Well, he won't try to save it. That's for sure.
He was practicing his very, very
Tom Daly-esque.
He was practicing his technique of picking it out of the onion bag, the yellow and green onion bag.
He'll get a bad back at Carrow Road if it carries on that way.
In fairness, no goalkeeper saving that, in my opinion. It was just Krul was too far away and it was too close to the goal. But yeah, no.
I know one goalie that would save it.
Bartos.
I didn't say the name. You did. Thank you ever so much. Right, Joe, start with your downs. You've got Wickham and you've got Watford. Talk to me.
My God. Well, I think, we talk about sticking our neck on the line. It's all about opinions and stuff like that. I think we can safely say after 4 games that Wickham Wanderers are down. They are absolutely unbelievably shocking. I don't care anymore. I've tried to be nice about them and complimentary. They had 5 shots on goal, 1 on target. Luton had 16 shots on goal, 7 on target. I think what we're seeing now is that the gap is too big for Wickham. And I don't want to, unless they do an absolute madness in the transfer market in January and between now and the end of whenever it is, in a couple of days' time, 2 or 3, whatever it is, unless they do an absolute madness in the transfer market, there is no way that there is 3 other teams in this league that are worse than them after what I've seen after 4 games. The gulf is too big. And they've played, this is why I want to just highlight, they've played Rotherham, Blackburn, Swansea, and Luton. Now, you can think about Blackburn and maybe say, oh, fair enough, it was never going to happen. Maybe you could try and justify trying to get something from Swansea, but the Rotherham game and the Luton game, you've lost both games. And not only have you lost both games, you've kind of been outplayed in both games, particularly in the Luton game. And I'm just looking at the gap. And again, I'm sure they'll pick up the odd point here and there as it goes, but we haven't seen it so far. And for me, I think we're just looking now at this Wickham team, and the gap is too big for the teams in and around them. Sheffield Wednesday will overtake them in due course, and it will, it's only going down because there simply isn't 3 teams that are worse than Wickham Wanderers in the Championship, and I don't think that's going to change between now and the next 42 games. So that is first trending down today, Wickham Wanderers.
They are in a world of trouble, and for a team that voted to end their season early, other seasons early and not their own, and then won promotion via the back door, I'm sorry if I don't sound too sympathetic towards them. They are... Is it too strong to say an embarrassment to the Championship, Joe?
Yeah, because I think that after 4 games, it'll be... I think if they're like... I always put heart back to that Derby County team in the Premier League a few years ago that got like 11, 12 points. We've seen it, or even that Bolton team, or Southend last year, even though pathetic amount of points. I think see Wickham after 10 or 12 games, and if they've only got 3 points on the board, I think then we're going to have to say, actually, it was a completely unrealistic jump. And maybe the owners looked at it and got as a financial smash and grab, with unique settings and times, maybe going in the Championship, no, we can't stay up, get some puffed up money, a little bit of broadcasting stuff, even though obviously no revenue, which of course will drastically affect things. But yeah, for me, I just way out of their depth. And I watch it, and I encourage people watching to go back and just type Luton on the or Wickham and watch their highlights back. Watch Luton's second goal and watch the tackle. Watch the position where the centre back is. He's almost signing non-existent autographs in the stands. He's so wide, it's all over the place, and they're out of the depth, and that's just it. And again, that hopefully, midway through their season, if they are in such a bad position, as we've seen with teams, the rains come off a little bit and they may have a few highlights and they may beat one of the Premier League relegated teams. Who knows? But for me, they are way down and they're not going to recover much for me, I'm afraid. And again, maybe they'll prove me wrong, and Wickham fans at the end of the year will be laughing at me and recycling this clip and taking the mick, and they'd have done well to do it because they're just so out of their depth, mate.
Well, they've got 8 days, really, haven't they, to rescue something? And I'm getting kind of sick of it as a neutral Joe, of these teams coming up for the money and smash and grabbing it and appearing to look like they're sitting back. Now, I'm not saying Wickham are doing that. I'm not saying they're not doing it. I'm not saying Norwich did it in the Premier League. I'm not saying they didn't do it. Various writers have written about it in tabloids already, and you can find that online. You're right, it is about money. It is a good bit of money. But I want to see something from my clubs, at least try and attempt to stay there, and maybe a loan spell for a player or something. 5.5 hours without a goal is not great. If you look at their opening fixtures, Rotherham, a team that you expect to be in the bottom 6, Blackburn, that could be, Blackburn are looking at a decent side. Swans were in the top 6 last year. Luton were a bottom 6 side who, again, you would probably think Luton's realistic ambition this year is 14th. And they would say, that's a great year. So if you're Wickham, that's 2 games there where you wanted at least 3 points. You didn't get it. You didn't get it. Now looking ahead, you've got Millwall. I wouldn't expect results against Millwall. Reading, who are in absolute fine form. Norwich City. Yeah,
and then they've got Watford in it. Yeah, something like that. That's like they've got like the big team straight after the next 2 games. And the next 2 games, they don't look like they're going to get anything from them either.
Yeah, you honestly look at Wickham and you think, I don't know where your points are going to come from. You've blown a good opportunity for at least 4 points from those first opening games. But that's football. So Watford, what about Watford?
Well, I think really we'll look at that and go, well, Reading have been quite good this season and they're, near the top, and Watford just maybe got turned over on the day. But I think there's actually some slightly not so very encouraging signs. I don't want to be overly critical because it is very, very early on, and it's I only really feel like I'm comfortable sticking my neck on the line for Wickham really at the moment, and possibly, dare I say, Nottingham Forest, although we'll talk about them in a bit. But for me, Watford, they've not won away since January now, and scored 2 goals this season in the Championship. Now, was it 4 games in with their attacking line and the players that they've got? I think 2 goals, they should be yielding a lot more than that, and not forgetting that one of them was from a header from Craig Cathcart from a corner. So they haven't actually converted many of their chances. And yesterday they were pretty wasteful. I think they had about 10 or 11 shots and only 1 or 2 on target. So, they did hit the bar with Garner, the lad from Manchester United. So he looks promising in midfield. But I get a sense Ismail Sarr, the winger there, I think his head might have been turned. And I think that he may need to be offloaded. Also, as well, just for if you fancy a laugh, guys, this morning, if the grey days depressing you out there, if you go on Watford and Reading's YouTube channel and watch the highlights, the very first shot of the game by Ngakia, you may have seen this, is one of the most hilarious shots I've ever seen. He's outside of the boot, just completely fluffed it. He's trying this miracle shot. I was in stitches. I rewinded it about 4 times this morning. So if you fancy it, you'll laugh. That's good. But for Watford, I think that they would have gone there and think, actually, we need to be beating teams like Reading if we are, champions elect or promotion elect team this year. And I think that I think they started okay, and they've just got a little bit more lethargic, and they need to find that cutting edge. And although João Pedro, I watched the extended highlights, he looked really good. As a 19-year-old Brazilian striker, I saw him on the halfway line picking out long balls at times. So I think that they need to work out the link up front and what's going to go on up there, and try and just fine-tune that attacking unit at Watford. But that's quite a poor result, and I think they would want to start winning away from home, considering they haven't since January, and they need to start finding their shooting boots as well.
Yeah, I don't know the financial situation at Watford, but I get the feeling we may be seeing a striker come in towards the end of this transfer window. I think if obviously Sarr goes, they'll look to replace him. But Vladimir Ivic, that's how you say the surname? Well, Watford manager said, "I'm disappointed because I believe we were the better team. We tried to react in the second half. We played organised for the first 15, 20 minutes. Maybe we didn't create a clear chance, but in the last 20 minutes we start to be nervous. We start to lose the confidence, our shape and our movement. I can be satisfied with most of the game. We played good, especially in the 45 minutes. I believe we were dominant. We created 3 or 4 good chances to score 2 or 3 goals." Speaking to BBC Sport there, BBC Three Counties to be precise. I just get the feeling he feels, as a manager, that we're creating chances, we're not converting chances, and Watford may be looking to bring a striker in.
Well, the only thing I would say is, first things first with Watford, do I think the money's there? 100% yes. I think one thing we've taken into account, we've spoke about Norwich's money, and they've obviously sold more than they've done even now with Ben Godfrey, so we're well accelerated ahead. But I think what we forgot about Watford, Bournemouth and Norwich is throughout the season, they're going to have substantial parachute payments as well, which will top things up very nicely. And I think another thing what we're forgetting about Watford is that they also sold a left back this window for 15 million quid who never played for the club. So most of their outlay in the transfer market, if not, has been covered by this 50 million sale. Now, if Ismaili Sarr goes to a Premier League club, that's going to be around the 25 million mark as well. So they will be more than covered financially. And these big teams only seem to need to sell a couple of players, rely on the parachute payments, and financially they're sorted for the next 18 months, 2 years. But the one thing with Watford in a striking position, they may need one, but you've got Troy Deeney, you've got Glenn Murray and the João Pedro. Well, João Pedro looks to be the first starter. You're then going to have to accommodate Deeney as well in the long run. And Glenn Murray hasn't come down there at 37 to sit on the bench. Now, I don't know if Andre Gray is still on the books there as well. There doesn't actually seem to be much room for a new striker at Watford. And although I think the finances would allow them to bring in a new striker, I don't think they've got the room to accommodate one.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. So you're 2 up, Joe.
My 2 up are Bristol City and Friday night team Bournemouth. I'm going to start with Bournemouth as they were Friday night. Now, having a little look at Bournemouth on the outside on the first, I thought out of the 3 teams coming down that they'd be the least fancied. And
agreed.
After 10 or 12 games, that might pan out to be the case because they can sometimes look a little bit vulnerable, but nonetheless they've conceded goals this season. But the one thing for me with Bournemouth is, 4 games is a bit early for me still, but they've looked really good. And I watched the Coventry performance, and they've just gone under the radar this winter. We kind of didn't expect too much. We thought that they'd take a while to settle in. They've beaten the likes of Norwich already, and they were really comfortable against Coventry on Friday night.
What is it?
And well, no, cheap, mate, cheap from you. Especially when you don't blow your load just yet, mate. You've got your time coming up in a sec.
We have.
Oh, that sounded a bit grubby. But they were really comfortable against Coventry. They hadn't started that bad for a promoting side. Obviously, they've got 4 points already. Now, I know Coventry went down to 10 men, but they were already 3-1 up at that point. Bournemouth, they were looking really good, and Dan Gosling's 2 good goals were really well taken. And I think one thing that we forget actually about these Championship clubs, also Premier League clubs that come down from the Championship, that every year there's 1 or 2 players in the squad that didn't have the best year in the Prem but stand out in the Championship. And Dan Gosling is one of those players in midfield. He didn't really feature in the Premier League, had a couple of injuries. You play him in midfield in the Championship, and he's one of the better midfielders around. Scored 2 really, really well taken goals, particularly the second. And also, I think this year for Bournemouth, the really encouraging signs are Dom Solanke. Okay, he may not have the goals just yet, but his link-up play on Friday night was really good. Exactly, and if your team are scoring 3 goals in and around you, you're going to have chances. But the one key player for Bournemouth, the one player that I really rate that will go under the radar, he's done it before at this level, still young, is Lewis Cook in that central midfield. And he's had a horrid time with injuries at times in the Premier League, but I think he looked really good again on Friday night. And I think Lewis Cook could be key with his experience at Leeds at this level in the Championship, a bit older. I think he's a really vital midfielder for Bournemouth. And I think they look quite decent, and they're going about their work very quietly. So they're one of my trending up.
Yeah, Lewis Cook looked really good in that deeper role on Friday night. He made some crucial interceptions and just looking like he's settling in, really. But Coventry didn't help. Got Eric Clacton, good player. Gosling, yeah, another one, as Joe's mentioned. It's just Coventry didn't help themselves. Let's be brutally honest. Got the man sent off, and there will be tougher games to come for Bournemouth. Obviously, up next for Bournemouth are let's have a quick butchers.
Wickham.
Yeah. Queen's Park Rangers, Cardiff, Watford, Bristol City, and Derby. So, Championship fixtures coming thick and fast, and they're finding their feet. Out of the three that have come down, they're the ones I agree. I thought they wouldn't hit the ground running. However, how wrong have we been? On to Bristol City, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, what I think's really good about this result at the weekend is you're facing Nottingham Forest at an absolutely crucial time, and Nottingham Forest could have easily been trending down this week for both of us, and I think they're an easy target. But it's worth noting out that Nottingham Forest probably had a bit more of the game, but Bristol City's chances were that more dangerous, and their strike and like their efforts were just that bit more telling, and they were obviously much more clinical because they got the result. But it was a do or die game for Nottingham Forest. It felt like that. There's now 6 defeats in a row for them. Forest, the home side, had 21 shots, 6 on target, and I watched back the game. Bristol City had 7, 5 on target, and it felt like Bristol City had the better of the game. It was so bizarre. And that's the thing, which you can tell, obviously, Forest have got problems. But on Bristol City, I think they've started absolutely relentlessly. They've recruited really, really well. And it's the players from previous years that are also doing quite decent. Like Andreas Byman took his goal brilliantly. He's a really good player at this level. And with good players around him, he becomes even better rather than him trying to be a standout attacker in that team. I think Naki Wells' goal was brilliantly taken. I think he's a fantastic championship striker that over the last 18 months or so, had the 2 years, has had one too many loans and got a bit lost. He seems to be doing well at Bristol City now. And that is a really well taken poacher's finish. I think Alfie Wilson as well, he's been around a few clubs, Swansea, Fulham, and had been kicked about a little bit, tipped for England, got a cap and then gone down. I think he's been really solid for them as well. And Bentley in goal, I think Bristol City have gone about it really, really well. And when you're bringing on the line, you've got Chris Martin leading the line. He'll throw himself around for 90 minutes every game. And Chris Brunt coming into the team with that left foot delivery. I mean, some games he starts, he come off the bench the other day, or yesterday, should I say. They've just got some really nice options. And of course, the likes of Deju as well, who was scoring goals for them up front. He's still at the club and coming on as an option. So I think there's so many reasons for Bristol City to be positive this season, the way they've started. And the fact perhaps, even though their chances were a bit better, the fact that they weren't necessarily the team with the most shots, I think to come away with a win speaks volumes. So good luck to them. They're one of my trending up this week.
Yep. Dean Holden, speaking to BBC Radio Bristol, said we got two good goals again. Then we switched off a little bit and the momentum of the game changed. At 2-1, we knew what they would throw at us in the second half, so we had to stand up to it, and we did, to be fair. 4 wins from 4 is a tough ask in any division, and the players are giving everything. Dan Bentley was incredible in the second half. Some of the saves he made were big saves. And the Forest manager said there were positives today, but not enough. The result is a negative one more time. It's one more day, one more game, one more bad result with the same mistakes. After the second goal, we started to play. We got back in the game. The second half was the opposite. I don't know why we play only when we need a reaction and not from minute 1. We need to wake up, take responsibility. Of course, the manager has more responsibility than anyone. The second half was much better. We just need to click. That, to me, sounds like an exasperated manager, if I'm brutally honest. A guy that's trying to find answers and doesn't and can't find them.
Well, we'll talk about Forest now, mate. For me, I think that the writing's on the wall for Lamucci only because of modern day football and where it's heading. I think 6 defeats on the bounce. It doesn't help when you're watching highlights and the commentary team are already talking about the guy's future before a ball's been kicked. And I think with the resources they've got available at Forest, or at least the players that they had available, I just think they're in a bit of a mess. I think the season started a bit poorly. Again, people can argue to me that he ain't pulled his weight or he ain't done well enough, but I think allowing João Carvalho out on loan is just absolute craziness. People can say he hasn't been good enough, but he's got enough under a new manager to be a fine player for you and stuff. And I just think that they've got in a bit of a muddle, Forest, after a really poor start. And who would have said after 4 games that they would only be 7 points behind Sheffield Wednesday? I mean, it's just absolutely ludicrous, really, when you think about it. And with that chap we talked about on the first podcast, that So from PSG, I think he's a decent centre-back, but he's walking into his first English football in a team that's a mess. He's 18 years of age. It's just incredibly difficult for him. And I think also what's quite telling about yesterday is they probably had the most shots they ever had in a game all season. Well, they definitely did. And they had more chances and involved, and they still lost the game. And I think
well, this is it though, Joe, isn't it? When you're down the bottom and you need a result, you oftentimes don't get it as a manager. And yesterday was incredibly lucky for Forest. I made 3 sentences. That's all I made on this game. Forest clumsy in defence. Bentley outstanding game for Bristol City. Great second goal for Bristol City from Nahki Wells. Bentley had an amazing out of performance goal. Performance, sorry, out of body performance. He was amazing in goal yesterday. Those are the performances you get when you're down the bottom like Lamucci and you need a result. Another day, Forest win 3-1, 3-0, 4-0, and they look comfortable. Bentley was the difference maker, really, yesterday.
Yeah, and this is why it goes under the radar, and it will go under the radar even on this podcast, because we'll talk about strikers and players scoring goals, but how important goalkeepers are. And I always point back to one example when Liverpool won the Champions League, not last season, season before. In the group stage, they were when they had Napoli. There was this save that Alisson made, literally from about a yard away, and if they'd scored, Liverpool would have gone out. And I think it was in the 89th minute, and he stuck a hand out, literally point blank. Liverpool go throughout the group stage, go on to win the Champions League, but it should any 100 times, 99 times out of 100, the striker scores, and they're the margins in football that either take you up or take you down, and that could be what Bentley could be that final now in Nottingham Forest coffin. Although people say it might have been coming. I think yesterday is one of those you look on paper and go, right, well, where does he go? Because they've shown a response, but they've still haven't got anything.
No, and obviously the year before in that example, Liverpool lose the Champions League final because of a goalkeeper mistake.
Yeah, exactly, and that's it precisely. Flappy special from Karius, and and this is it. That's why the position's so important. And I think you need a hungry, up and coming keeper, and we're seeing it now. I think even with Everton doing really well in the Premier League, their problems going forward are great, but Pickford's having difficulty, and they are conceding goals, and that eventually the better teams will pick you off the more you have someone between the sticks. So you need a good keeper there, and that's what's going to play into Bristol City's hands this season when they're needing to chase those games and they're playing against the best teams, and they need to scrap for a point or need to scrap for another one. That's what's going to play into their hands, having Bentley there.
Absolutely right. My 2 up: Derby and Reading. So I'll start with Reading. Reading sits second in the Championship, 4 games with points total. They've flew out the traps. They really have. The 2 ahead of Bournemouth. The dream start for the Royals, and you have to be honest. They're really good money this season. They've played well and won key games. The perennial. The start has concluded perennial playoff contenders Derby, Cardiff, who were in the playoffs last year, Barnsley, who you'd expect to be winning, and Watford. So they've not been playing, nobodies, in all due respect to Reading, and they've flown out of the traps. And yesterday they were really good money in their 1-0 win over early title favourites Watford, and that's what Watford are, title favourites. The Reading backline have only conceded once in the last 4 league games. So when George Puskas put the Royals ahead with a well-worked, but in the end lucky goal, let's be honest, to fire a deflection that unfooted Ben Foster, the whole team, you could almost see it even on highlights, just lifted in confidence because they know defensively they're really quite sound. And that's not something you've said about Reading over the course of the last, for many, many years. Was it a complete performance? No. But it's 3 points, and they have now got a platform to go into October with. Their next games: Middlesbrough, Wickham, Rotherham, Blackburn, Coventry. I mean, if they can keep this form going, and eventually it won't, let's be brutally honest, they're going to fall off a cliff at some point because they're going to revert back to normal, you'd have to think. But these next games: Borough, that's winnable. Wickham, very winnable. Rotherham, very winnable. Blackburn, tricky. Coventry, winnable. They could be early pace setters, Joe.
I think the Borough game's a lot more. I'd say it is winnable, yeah, of course, but I think that we've seen Borough are actually quite hard to beat. So I think if you even say a draw in that game, you set yourself up for Wickham and Rotherham, because if you draw against Borough and you take 6 points from them 2, that's absolutely fine as well going into the Blackburn game for where they're predicted. So now they've got a bit of freedom after that break, and like I say, I think the Borough game will be important how they set the tone for the next 2 games, because they come unstuck in that game. And then they play Wickham in the next game. If Wickham have suddenly riled up, although I extremely doubt it, that could be, as you said earlier on in the pod, a potential banana skin. But yeah, no, I agree with Daniel. Actually, he made a good point. I'm very surprised with it as well. I think what we're seeing is the manager who's gone to Ponovic. I think what we're seeing is someone getting the maximum out of every player in every position, giving that player maybe a bit of man management behind the scenes, like extra 10%, extra 15%. And as we've seen with the likes of Klopp, all these managers over the years, the ones that really get the most out of their squad, that's what we're seeing with Reading. I think perhaps we're looking at some other squads who are underachieving with the players that they've got at their disposal. That he's getting an extra 10%. Everyone in the team's playing that little bit better, and they're a proper unit, and that's why they're succeeding. Proper units in the Championship do, and then sometimes you don't need the best players. Sometimes you don't need the biggest depth of squad. I think something else which we should really take our hat off to Reading. Yesterday there were 4 academy players in the team.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Amazing. No, yeah, they're doing really well, and they're put together a little side. And the manager spoke to the press yesterday, and he said, we are happy with our performance. We're happy with how the team is developing, and the guys are bonding. But we know that we haven't done anything yet, which to me gets me excited, because that, first of all, means the dressing room is humbled and it's got its feet on the ground still. It's a good beginning, but we've got a long way to go. This was the hardest game we've had so far, because the teams are now getting more into the season and getting in better shape, us included. And I just feel, you know what, Reading, hats off to you. You've been a bottom 10 side for a couple of seasons, and you've started off really well. And you need a platform to start off from, and this is it. And on the flip side of that platform, we've got Derby here, and we've spoken about on the pod, myself, you, Rob, about Koku, and is he going to get sacked? Is it, who's going to win the race, Lamucci or Koku? And yesterday, Wayne Rooney, take a bow. When your team needs you, when your manager needs you, when you need to step up and show the quality and be a senior player, look at what you did. Absolutely superb. And if you haven't seen this goal yet, guys, make sure over the course of the weekend you do, because it's a Wayne Rooney special. We've seen him do it many times. He knew the moment, Joe, he left his boot, that it was in, which to me is a magical thing.
He didn't react though barely in his face, did he? He just knew it. How many times he'd done that over his career, and I think you watch it. I don't know if it was Lucas Rupp in the build-up, or actually had a good game for Norwich, one of the few, and he completely sides him down. Stupid foul to give away. Because let's be real, I know there's players in the Championship that can take a free kick, but I think, let's be honest, there isn't. Wayne Rooney is still by far and away the best player in the Championship.
Oh, God,
so that's up for debate. It's not even close to being a debate, and he is. When it's so ominous when he would put the ball down there in that position, it's absolutely perfect for him. And that's what Derby County have got, which perhaps Nottingham Forest haven't got. And I think we looked yesterday at those fixtures. Look at Forest. That was the game they needed to win. Derby were in a similar position, although I think we would have forgiven them for getting a point at Norwich. That's the difference. In the 88th, 89th minute, how's your cojones? Have you got someone that can get you the 3 points? And Derby County have, and not just against a team that should be challenging. So that is, smash and grab. It may be 33% possession, far less shots. It's the best sort of 3 points you can get. And the type of 3 point as well, as all of us listening in right now know, as a football fan, is the absolute best, particularly if you've gone away and watched it. When your team, the first half, they just shut up shop, did absolutely nothing. And then when you score a goal in the last minute to take all 3 points away from them, there's no better feeling in football as a football fan. It's up there with some of the best. So, no, I think there'll be Derby County fans who have been sweating, been very nervous a lot so far at the start of this season. And I think they'll be very, very pleased with that. And I think that's a good sign going forward, as well. If they can rely on Wayne Rooney and get their early start turned around. They've still got a lot of work to do, though. Don't get me wrong. They're still not completely out of the woods, even early on. They need to get their ball rolling and keep the momentum going. And maybe the wins come at the wrong time for them. Maybe they didn't need a break. But no, good luck to them. That was a really, really good 3 points. Oh, he's gone. Mr. Lambert is gone. Like Paul Lambert in a few weeks' time.
No, I'm here. Sorry, I was talking, but I was on mute. I'm sorry. I was just saying, look, you're right. At times, it was a bit flat for Derby, but they've gone to an early season favourite in the form they're in, and they've grabbed all 3 points. And Koku, and as you've said, Derby fans will be delighted. They rode their lucks at times, but unlike Forest, whose manager can't buy a piece of luck, Derby got theirs yesterday. They didn't control the game, but from away from home, you rarely do, Joe. And interesting that they converted 50% of their shots on target, of shots on goal into shots on target. So a really good platform. And Rooney was my standout player. I thought he played really well.
They had a 3 on target out of 9. I think that Well, I'll be honest with you. I watched the extended highlights again.
Well, 4.5 is 50%, so I'm not too far from the maths.
How can you have 4.5 shots on target?
Well, you can't. But I'm saying 50% is 4.5 shots. I've said in 3 years, I'm not too far from my early Sunday morning maths.
33.3 recurring, mate.
There you go. You see, you're a better pundit than I. Right, on to my downs.
No, but one thing I'm just gonna say about the Derby performance. Yeah, of course, you don't expect teams to go away, and you always go away to set up from home. But I watched that first half, and it was backs against the wall, mate. They went there to, just basically defend for the first half, but and then take the chances. But that's what it's about, playing away from home. That same that Wickham could take note of, at least.
Wow.
Some struggling teams down there, but yeah, no, I think I watched that first half. They went there with their tails between their legs and kind of come away a little bit more lucky. Derby missed a David Nugent, a bit more penetration up there.
Salty, right?
Style.
Norwich and Rotherham. Let's start with Rotherham. Let's save the best till last. So Rotherham. This could have been up or down, to be fair.
I was really shocked by this. Sorry, I just wanted to say I was really shocked by this decision out of teams that had been picked on. Well, not picked on, but picked up on Rotherham. I'm looking forward to this.
Let's see what I've got. So this could have been up or down. I'll set the stall out earlier. It was one of those games. When did Huddersfield equalise? The 96th minute. They do say what goes around comes around. And obviously Rotherham's first championship win came in the closing stages over Wickham. However, make no mistake about this, it was very much 2 points dropped for the Championship New Boys against the Huddersfield side that are struggling to find their identity. It was a scrappy game, but the first goal was a real piece of quality, a strike from outside the area by Wiles. Tactically or mentally or whatever it is, Rotherham just sat back, Joe, and allowed Huddersfield to have wave after wave after wave. I think if they're still playing now, wave after wave. And in the end, as it inevitably does, I don't know why managers do this. Paul Lambert's famous for doing it as well. You sit back, and inevitably, Huddersfield got a goal. And, in the end, Rotherham's luck ran out. And the deflected goal robbed Rotherham of all 3 points and a big Derby win. They now sit in 12th, 5 points. But let's not pretend it isn't a good start. It's one of those, it could have been so much better. That's why they're on here. It could have been so much better. And 2 points come May make the difference between survival and relegation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's early on. I think if Rotherham had said that they'd be 12th after the first 4 games, to be honest, I think they probably would have taken it. But we are talking about a 1 or 2 points difference between the bottom clubs and the teams challenging for the playoffs because it is so early on. Yeah, of course, they're going to have to get points on the board. But I think if we look at all the teams that we think are going to be in and around where Rotherham are, Barnsley, Wickham, Coventry, the only one really that before a ball was kicked that's above them is Luton. So I think on the grand scheme of things, yeah, I see what you're thinking. They need to actually at home, if you want to put a stamp on the game, bit of identity. You don't want to be getting outplayed all the time by a mid-table team.
But Huddersfield are struggling, right? We said this before on the podcast. Huddersfield are struggling with an identity at the moment. So that was the right time to play them. So to slip up like the way they did, for me, is why they're on here. And when you look ahead, bear in mind this is a trending down. The arrow is pointing down. Why is it pointing down? Up next, Norwich, who at home, Norwich away from home, they're a good side. It's at Carrot Road they struggle. Rotherham have got Nottingham Forest away. Again, that could be a different Forest side come the 20th of October. It could be Lamucci's Revival. It could be somebody else in charge. Then you've got Reading on fire at the moment. Wednesday, well, you love Wednesday. I'm not a big fan. Stoke. This was your opportunity to head into October with a decent 3 points.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure I entirely agree because I don't think...
Good. Don't agree. Tell me why.
Well, because I just think that saying that Huddersfield are there for the taking, I think they did beat Nottingham Forest in the game before 1-0, and I think to beat Forest in that game was a really, really good 3 points. And I think that week at the club, even though it's a 1-0 win, the dressing room's a completely different place to what it was a week before. We've only got 1 point from a possible 6. So I think taking that Nottingham Forest goal and going to Rotherham, that's probably why, because we'd probably say on paper Huddersfield just about outclass Rotherham. When they went 1-0 down, Huddersfield then retained the ball because they've got the better midfielders, and of course they dictate the game. I think that's probably what Paul Ward or Warren, I think is it Paul Warren or whatever the guy's name, manager of Rotherham. He probably thought sometimes managers have got to make this call. We're a bit out of our depth here, and I think that's how Huddersfield probably had a bit too much for them, and that's when they went 1-0 up. They had to protect what they got, and I think sometimes the lesser teams have to do that at the expense of points because points are more precious to them than, say, a Huddersfield side who may float around mid-table this year. But I just think that Huddersfield, even though they had a poor start, I think that win against Nottingham Forest a week before would have just settled their nerves. And I think that's why they were a lot better this week. And I think that's why a 1-1 was probably a more true reflection on the game. And although I totally see your points on Rotherham and that they do need to take points when they're there for the taking and they are in the lead, because we've seen teams that are in the lead that lose points always tend to go down or at least have a lot of trouble. But I would err on the side of that. I don't think Huddersfield are as into. I think they'd regrouped a little bit from where they'd been a few weeks ago.
And I agree with you, and that's why I said at the start of the down that they could be up or down this week. It would one of those where it was almost a coin toss. Was that good or was that bad? And I felt more it was bad looking at the run of games coming up, and obviously this being a how's their arrow trending, I just felt, that wasn't great. So, on to the other team on the list, Norwich. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. After 4 games, Norwich sit 15th with 4 points. A slow start to say the least. However, when you consider the opening 4 games have been Bournemouth, who sit 3rd, Preston, who sit 20th, Huddersfield, who sit 18th, and Derby, who now sit 19th, many Norwich fans will rightfully be unhappy with just 4 points. And so they should. There is too much noise around Norwich at the moment. Players are not coming in. Players are not going out. Players doing this. Players doing that. There is too much noise. Will they have to work some moves in the closing stages of the transfer window? Absolutely. And they had a goal scorer, Joe. Yesterday, 5 shots from 13 on target. And again, they've struggled to break their deadlock. Penalty. I don't know what Pookie was thinking, wearing plastic moulds on a day like yesterday. I mean, that's just criminal as an ex-player who's always metal studs on a day like yesterday. But look, we sit here after Preston, Joe, and we say...
We got into the detail that, mate, you can tell you're a thirsty, desperate Ipswich fan. We're picking on players for wearing certain studs in the analysis of their performance.
Joe, we sat here after Preston...
Honestly, please, I'll just get my coffee. This is fantastic. Thank you.
Joe, you tell me where I'm wrong in these points, because we sat here after Preston...
Football studs, my God.
If he's wearing metal studs, is he skying that penalty?
Oh, mate, it happens. It happened to John Terry in a Champions League final. But please, sorry, I'm gonna have to urinate if I'm not careful. It might be in my pants and laughter. Sorry.
You can joke it off, Joe, but we sat here after Preston and we said they were lucky to grab a point. But
mate, I'll take anything about a bad performance, but having a pop at players for wearing certain studs.
I wasn't having a pop. I was saying he was wearing plastic moulds. Should he have been wearing plastic moulds? That's a fair enough point, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. What else was bad? Was it? I want to hear the rest because I don't want to just focus on Pookie studs.
Well, it was more of a just a comment in passing, but you've drawn it because you're sitting here, someone who works in Norfolk, and you don't want to face the fact that it isn't a great start, it isn't brilliant, things aren't rosy.
You haven't let me say anything. I just literally found your point about studs incredibly amusing when there is so much else to go at. I haven't even had a chance to say anything about their start.
Well, that's why it was a comment in passing, and I was carrying it on. We sat here after Preston, lucky to grab a point. We said yesterday they didn't have the same luck. They could have gotten beat by Preston at home. Joe, and they've got beat by Derby in freefall. Things aren't good at Carrot Road.
You're speaking for me. I didn't say once that they were lucky to get a point at Preston at home. I said they should have won that game. You said that they were lucky to get a point.
I said we, as a general, the podcast, myself.
I didn't. No, you're speaking for... I didn't. Well, I said that they did. Okay, well then that's fine then. You said that they were lucky. I didn't say they were lucky. No, they have had a poor start. And I think that Daniel Farke's a very angry man. I think listening to every single post-match interview each week and press conference, there's a little bit more frustration in his voice every single week. And that's because, as you touched on there, it's a bit of a circus at the moment. He doesn't know who's playing because 1 minute there's a bid on the table, the next there isn't. And don't get me wrong, for the sake of a few weeks, it's a bad position to be in. But for the long-term future of the club, with players coming and going and strengthening behind the scenes and stuff like that, I think that they're laying down foundations. And it'll be frustrating for Norwich fans temporarily. But I think once Farke gets settled and knows his team, they'll be a bit more back on a level playing field. Norwich will be a mid-table team for years to come, but that's fair enough. I find that quite hard to
conceive, though, based on the money coming in the club and what facilities and resources they'll have available to them. But no, they need to turn it around. But I think firepower-wise, they'll be fine. I think they're creating chances. Someone will get on the end of it. I think the thing is, Hugill and Ida probably look a little bit more hungry and fitter than Timu Pukki, and I think Farker's got a bit too much loyalty to him at the moment. The penalty miss for me, it happens. We see it time and time again. How many times have we seen a player slip over and fluff it? It happens. It's happened to the best players, and it was a bad day at the office for them. They need to be a bit more fluid, but I still think that the core of the team is there, and I still think that they're playing okay. I think they dominate most games they're in. They've just been a bit unlucky. And if you're going to concede a free kick in the last minute, make sure Wayne Rooney isn't taking it. I think they'll be all right after the break once they confirm who's in the squad. I think Will Campbell go, possibly. I think Buendia will probably end up staying. But they need to calm down. I think one thing that's quite promising is the Ben Gibson performance yesterday when Ben Godfrey was going off to Everton. I think to bring him into the side, and he looked quite strong. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom panic, but Daniel Farker is definitely a very angry man, and he's not happy. If you go back, I'd encourage you all to go back and listen to his press conferences. He keeps letting the occasional fringe swear word out about bloody transfer window, bloody this, bloody that. But the only thing I would disagree on is I don't think you'll see another striker coming in at Carrow Road, because they only play with one up top and they've got 3 or 4 there. So I don't think you'll see a striker coming in, possibly another winger. But I think they'll come good personally. I haven't seen enough. That result yesterday to me was just a smash and grab, typical. I don't think that it's as bad as you make out. But no, they've had a poor start. One thing I will say though, the season that they went on and won the league, they had a very, very similar start to you, and it was a very uninspiring East Anglian derby draw that actually set their season off and running after a very poor start as well. So I'm not going to get too carried away for Norwich 4 games in, but out of all the teams, they should be converting more. And on another day, they beat Derby comfortably, and that's just how it goes. So I don't think they'll be completely panicked. Farker's very much a man when it's going well, he isn't too bothered. When it's going bad, he isn't too concerned either. But no, they need to rocket up their backside, and they need to get back out there. And I think he needs to cut away some of the players. He's changed about the lineup a bit. We saw Steeperman come in, and they haven't got the likes of Buendia firing all cylinders. It was only his first game back. So yeah, no, I think they need to get the transfer window out of the way completely, know what he's working with, and then they'll be able to move forward. But as you're right, until then, as we're seeing with other clubs as well, when you've got attractive players, it's very hard to focus, isn't it? And
so basically, what I've said, it was right then. There is too much noise about Norwich at the moment. They are struggling to score goals. They are struggling to win games. It hasn't been a great start.
Yeah, what did I say?
Just making sure that you've skirted around every point about saying I actually agree with you.
What are you going on about? How have I skirted around? I've literally addressed every single point you've said.
But every time you've gone to say, yeah, I agree with you, you've stopped yourself.
What are you on about? Okay, mate, if that's what you think, we'll go back and watch back. I think that you're getting a bit excitable and carried away, Martin, this morning, mate. I think you should go back and watch the podcast and actually see that I have addressed all your points, mate. I'm not, because I think that you're being honest. I think you just needlessly stick the boat and get carried away with the analysis on Norwich rather than looking at it rather objectively. And I think that's the difference, because you're so keen to lay out the credit. That's the thing, you undone. You thought the stud thing is just I'd be on at Pookie for changing those studs.
But I didn't. That wasn't my observation. That was an observation from Twitter. From people on Twitter.
Okay, mate, you can say that, but that's fine. But I just think that it's one thing to completely blow, picking out points like that very minor when you've got a lot of others.
On to the Predictor League. So Dan leads the week on 20 points. Sorry?
Don't mute me. I'm mid-flow, thank you, mate.
Well, I wanted to move on. It's 53 minutes in. Dan leads the way on 20 points this week. A hell of a week for Dan. Dan, you are running away with this week. Is it the points total finished this week, or is the Sunday games going to be included for next week?
Yeah.
So this week's done. So Dan is the leader. Dan's won this week.
Yeah.
Wow, Dan, you have a great week. Joe in second. Jesus, 18 points. Ben 16 points. Nick 14 points. Me on 14 points, and Robbie down the bottom on 2. You missed Robbie's points out, so I quickly totaled them up this morning. I think it's because I put it on the YouTube video late, so I think that's more my fault. But he got 2 points, so I think he probably would have wished I didn't cut him up in the end anyway. Yeah, that's not good. So not a great week for Robbie, but there we go. So anything else to say on for Dan? Did he pick out any pearlers?
Yeah, a couple actually. 1 second, I've got them here.
He must have done for 20 points.
Mine was quite redeeming. I got 2 correct scores on the very 2 last fixtures for Keeper and Swansea. Where is Daniel? Bristol City game he got on the nose, Nottingham Forest, and the Rotherham Huddersfield draw on the nose. And you did have 6 points carried over from Thursday's podcast as well, Daniel. So you got 14 points on Saturday, and plus your 6 from Thursday from the Sunday games there. So that was what brought up to the 20. I didn't bring over any points from Thursday, but I got 18 yesterday, so it was a good day all round. So Ben, S, Martin, all on 12 yesterday, and a few on 10. So yeah, it was quite congested and quite tightly packed.
Nice. Cruncher. I like to see Cruncher down the bottom there. That's where he kind of belongs down there. We don't want to see him too high up that list. We really don't.
Well, he'll come good again. He'll say snakes and ladders in this league. So he's always a threat. He's Cruncher.
Sadly so. Yeah, I know. He likes to bleat on about it on the Talking Town. So I don't like to see him too high. I don't really care where I go. Just don't want to see Cruncher too high. S in where's that? Second, 4, 5, 14. So not a bad little week for people, really. There's a lot of draws this week, wasn't there?
Yeah, a few 0-0s. Well, 1-0, wasn't there, and a 1-1. Or was it no 0-0? No, there was 1-1s. Yeah, quite a few 1-1s.
Yeah, and I think that's where it caught Robbie out, because Robbie went for a majority of wins. I think he only had 1 draw on his whole list, if that. And obviously you can see the results from that itself, because, well, it wasn't. If you don't go for many draws, it's like an accumulator. If you don't go for many draws, you're not going to win money, because this week was basically draw heavy. But there we go. Yeah. Done and dusted.
Well, you get a point. I think everyone. I think there's.
He joins the winner. He joins the whiner list.
So Cruncher, Nick, Ben, and Dan. Yeah, so all spread out, all even going into week 5. Yeah.
Week 5, crazy. Week 5 already.
Yeah, buzzing, man.
It does fly. It does fly. But there we go. So we are done. An hour. We've overshot our time. Every show I'm on overshoots its time. But that's the way it goes. We'll be back Thursday at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Thursday with more Predictor League, more FM21 stuff. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your help in the chat. And of course, if you're just joining us a bit late, you can listen back on any good podcast platform. And there they are. All of those there and a whole lot more. And what were you doing with... What was that all about?
So it just complemented the circle quite nicely.
Like it. Well, we're done. We're dusted. We'll see you all next week. With love, with care. Bye-bye.